Hi, I'm Eileen Roach, and welcome to today's episode of Between Friends. We're talking all about monograms, how to make it more than just initials. So I'm so glad that you joined me. And I know monograms they kind of go in and, well, I want to say they go in and out of fashion. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we saw monograms on everything, but maybe not as much today, unless you're in Alabama or Mississippi or Florida. That southeast section of the country loves monograms, but all in other parts of the country, monograms are really maybe for special occasions. So we're going to talk all about that, and we're also going to talk about, you know, how do you start, right? Of course, it starts with the name, but how many letters do you use, and so forth. And there's some guidelines. I wouldn't really call them rules, but we'll talk all about that. So, welcome to Susan DeSoto, who's in Puerto Rico on vacation. Yippee-ki-yay! And you needed this break. Well, good for you. I hope you enjoy that beautiful 89-degree weather and that your whole vacation is going just great. And Laurie Albrecht's in sunny and beautiful Illinois today. And here's our good friend in Indiana, Reen Wilcoxon from Embroidery Garden, Laura Wallace from San Diego, and another Illinoisan, Linda Belford. And Puyallup. Oh, there's a blast from my past. Nancy Worrell, you're up in Puyallup, Washington. That's the site of one of the best sewing shows in America, and it comes every spring up in Washington State. So if you're a traveler and want to head out to a great sewing show, that's one to attend. Judy Warren, aloha from Hawaii. It's so nice to have you here. It's been quite a while. So thanks for joining us today. So let's go ahead and kind of talk about monograms. It does all start with the name, but we can go beyond initials and we can make it memorable. So let's start with single letter monograms. When we start with the name, we know who we're making this monogram for. And one way to do that is just with a single letter. Now, here's two feminine monograms. The little cheerleader on the left-hand side, instead of having a big R around the cheerleader, I put a little micro monogram on the sweater of the cheerleader. And wouldn't that be adorable on a bag for a cheerleader, or, some kind of thing that's small and she carries around? We have to be careful when we create monograms for children. We don't want to put it on any items that will be visible when they're outside of the home, right? So we don't normally put names and monograms on backpacks or, school equipment that they'll be carrying around. We want to keep, think about safety and make sure that they're safe. Now, on the other hand, when they're babies, it's a whole nother story, right? Because we often decorate the whole rooms with monograms, and no harm with having the crib full of monogrammed sheets and so forth. So let's take a look at a couple more. Now, here's the one on the left in that oak crest. That's a very traditional kind of formal monogram that would be very appropriate for a wedding gift. Whether it's on towels, or this kind of, to me, is really table linens. That tells me, a table runner or napkins on point, maybe. You be the judge for sure, but there's all different styles to take into consideration. And the one on the right, the bib, how sweet is that little linen, delicate bib? Now, that's actually shadow work. So monograms don't have to be, traditional satin stitches. You can add all kinds of different types of stitches to make it beautiful. So, what else do we have? Speaking of table linens, this A for the Anderson family on the left, that's an on-point design that just screams to me the corner of a napkin, and how elegant, how lovely. It's two colors. It could be stitched in one color if that it goes better with the dining room, let's say, or the china. But, it's nice to have options, right? Now here on the single initial of the Hernandez family, we actually included the name of the couple and, spelled out all the names, right? The couple's names and the last name. That's a little bit over the top, maybe, but it's beautiful. And it might be a great way to celebrate a marriage of a couple. So let's take a look at now here. Speaking of really calling out a single initial. This is a monogram for a young woman, Erin. So Erin is a 11-year-old little girl who loves to snuggle under a quilt with a book. And, so that's something she's going to do in the privacy of her home. And I thought, well, what a great way to just kind of, really put her customization on that quilt. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at hooping that quilt a corner so you can see, how we would handle that. But as you know, every episode of Between Friends is brought to you by a product. And today's product is actually Hoop Setter. So sometimes you have problems aligning tops and bottoms of the Snap Hoop Monster. Well, we have a solution for you, and you'll see how appropriate this is as we get to hooping. Some of the things we're going to hoop today, we're going to hoop a quilt, a large terry cloth towel, a jacket back. So, all of these things can be cumbersome, and it can be hard to determine if the top frame is aligned with the bottom frame. So let's go ahead and take a look at how it works, and then we'll go under the camera.
Hoop setters feature a channel that fits snugly under Snap Hoop Monster's metal frame. The 90-degree angle mimics the corners of most Snap Hoop Monsters. Hoop setters' barrier walls guide the magnetic top frame into position during the hooping process. On large hoops, place the hoop setters on the corners closest to the attachment with the barrier walls outside of the metal frame. On small hoops, place the hoop setters on the corners opposite the attachment. Place the fabric stabilizer combo or quilt sandwich over the metal frame. You can see the hoop setters are lifting the fabric, making the corners visible. Place the top magnetic frame perpendicular to the attachment. Position it between the hoop setters. Gently release the top frame. The top and bottom are now aligned.
Okay, so before we actually hoop, let's take a look at some other really pretty samples of single letter monograms, shall we? So here we have that's a small selection of really beautiful embroidery. So here is, these are bookmarks, these two linen bookmarks, and they've been embellished with some really beautiful tiny little stitches. Very elegant, very elegant. Single letter that can designate the first name or the last name. And here we have one that's probably a little bit more masculine, kind of an Art Deco look, and the colors are really lovely. Now, I just adore this Neptune. We call this the Neptune font, I believe. And doesn't it give you that, ocean-like feel with the swirly curves of these lines and the little fishtails hanging off of that monogram? A little polka dot adds another element of color. So now we have single letter, but 3 different colors. Looks just gorgeous. And this letter R, now this is a font that we call the Magnolia, and it is just lovely. So it has that beautiful vine in the background. And then we have the great big letter R, which is a satin, has some flourishes that come off of it. And it has some kind of like little polka dots, a stream of little dots that fills those satin columns. Very elegant, pretty feminine, I would say. So I would probably reserve this for a female. Now here's a project from many days ago, okay, but I just thought I would share it with you. So this is a satin, look at the pink thread. That's a satin script single letter monogram. And then this ribbon, this silk ribbon is actually stitched in the bobbin and I traced the letter M, the outside of each of the side of the satin with that silk ribbon in the bobbin. Now, when I do that, in the needle, I have a purple thread, a thread that matches the silk ribbon. And I have set my stitch length for 4.0, so it's a nice long stitch. And I don't put that silk ribbon in the bobbin tension. So it just kind of floats off and allows a little ripple to develop between each stitch. Now this tail, I need to take a large eye needle and thread this silk ribbon tail on that needle and work it to the back or inside of this little table topper so that it's not visible anymore. If I cut it, that's probably not a good idea because if I were to trim it here, very likely the stitches would become loose and then, the whole thing would unravel. So just another really fun, delicate way to embellish, a gift for somebody. Who knows, right? What the occasion is. Okay, so now I'm going to move these out of the way. And we're going to take I just want to show you that letter E. I printed a template on our print and stick Target template paper. And there we have our crosshair. And I have landed this. Now, this is one of those purchase throws. I don't have to quilt everything that's in my home, right? So this is one of those purchased ones. And I just aligned my crosshair with the center of this shape. Now, I can tell you it's not a perfect square. That's okay. Doesn't matter. But I want to align it with something. So I'm going to align it with that medallion. And then I'm going to take my hoop setters and get them in position. And then this is an 8x8 hoop because I know that's going to give me a nice, generous opening for that quilt, even though that design is probably about, 6 inches. Now I'm placing my hoop setters on the bottom of my hoop, and notice that that channel, right? The channel, it allows my hoop to just fit right in there. Now I have marked the center of this hoop, and I'm going to align that with the center line of the hoop mat, and I'm going to turn on my beam of POW, and then I'm just going to take that corner of the quilt and place it right underneath the beam. And it's just a powerful combination to have that POW, the print and stick Target template paper. And I can feel that hoop setter, right? I can feel my corner here. And of course, I can see a little bit of it right there because I'm not actually going to get the whole corner filled. And then I just take my top frame and I want to keep an eye on that template, right? I want to make sure that's going to stay in position. And I am getting that frame aligned with my hoop setter, and I'll push it back as far as it'll go. And then I'm just going to before I drop it, I'm going to make sure my fabric is aligned. And then I drop it into place, and I am almost perfectly aligned. What I can see is that I'm square, and that's what's important. Because when I go to the machine, I can then center my needle right over that crosshair. I have lots of wiggle room in this hoop, right? Because this design doesn't entirely fill that space. So good to go. So now when I go to the machine, first thing I want to do is get rid of those hoop setters, right? So I'll lift that and get them out of harm's way. And then I'll take my magnetic shield that we always store between our hoop, and I'll slide that underneath. And when I transport this over to the machine, I don't have to worry about anything becoming dislodged. So I'm all good to go on that. Okay, so that's the letter E for my little angel Aaron. And now I want to show you a terry cloth towel. So we'll just move that hoop out of the way for now. And have 2 monograms on here. So the idea was, I love the idea of having what we call a stacked monogram, where we have a large letter and then the name spelled out. And, the name can either stitch on top of the single initial or behind it. That's your choice. But, I had fun in my software doing this, and it's so pretty on the screen. But then when I printed it out, I realized, this Anna here is very delicate. It's fighting with this really heavy monogram, which is gorgeous, but the combination is not really that successful. And I realized I'm going to stitch it on terry cloth. So this is going to not be visible at all. I mean, you might see these little stitches, but these will just sink down into the terry cloth. So it's not a good candidate for terry cloth. So I came up with this one. Same idea of that beautiful A, that uppercase A, that's just gorgeous. How regal is that? And then I took Anna's name and I curved it around the top of the A. Super fun, really nice. Now, this could be stitched in 2 colors or 1 color, whatever you decide. And then, of course, I place it on my towel. I want to make sure that I'm parallel with the border. And now we're going to hoop it, right? And you know how big and cumbersome these can be. So again, we're going to take our bottom frame, and I'm going to turn on PAL. I'm going to get these hoop setters in place. Make sure I'm still all aligned. There we go. And then I'll take my, and I think this is going to fit in this hoop. I hope so. Okay. And then we'll just place that underneath. Yeah, look at that, right? I love it. So again, that crosshair that's on the template is aligned with the beam. That tells me I'm square in the hoop. Now I'm just pushing down that fabric, that terry cloth towel, so that I can really see these hoop setters. See the ridge? That's where my hoop setter is. Okay, and then we get our top frame. We're going to do the same thing that we did prior. I keep an eye on that crosshair, make sure everything stays aligned, and we just drop it. You know, it's kind of sliding on me. That's all right. You know how they always want to fight, right? But this method with the hoop setter is just perfect. I am perfectly aligned. So the only thing I want to do is kind of just pull on my fabric just a little bit, make sure it's nice and taut. And then I can lift this, get rid of those hoop setters, and I'm ready to go to the machine. Isn't that awesome? Let me get it out of the PAL. All those quarters. Okay. So isn't that going to be a beautiful monogram? What color would you stitch that in on that creamy towel? Tell me in the comments. Let's see. How would you do this with the positioning sticker snowman that we have on the machine? Kathy, it's the exact same thing. You're going to put that snowman, the positioning sticker, in the desired location on the towel. And then you're just going to use hoop setter. And if you have PAL, you can use PAL, but often with the positioning sticker, you don't need PAL. So you'll just, then at that point, you're going to eyeball it, and you want to see if you're, you know, you want to be generally in the center. And then when you take the hoop and put it on the machine and select the positioning sticker, the alignment tool that's on the machine will then rotate your design and position it in alignment with your snowman. So that's how you, and so I'll do one without the PAL, but I have PAL, so it's, and I can tell you, it's also more precise than some of the features on the machine. I'm not going to say which ones, and I love those machines, and I have all those machines too. So I'm not bashing the machines. I just know from practice that PAL is really precise. That's all. Okay. So here, we'll turn that off, and let's just do the same thing without PAL, okay? So I'm not going to move it because I have other things to show you. But so again, I'm going to get my hoop setters in place. And when you look at this image on the screen, when you're looking at my towel, instead of looking at the letter A, think of your positioning sticker being right here. And that's all you're focusing on, right? So you could fold the towel at the crosshair, and you're going to know where that crosshair is. And then you would just somewhat, right, center that with the center of your hoop. Like I have marked mine, and it's aligned here with this white line, this heavy bold line on the mat. And then we're just going to smooth that down. And I'm holding the towel because I want to keep it in the position, right? And it's pretty heavy, so it's dragging off the table. And then I'm going to smooth that towel into the hoop setter so that I can really see it. I can really see where that is. And then I'm going to take that top frame, and same thing. I'm going to place it perpendicular, and then I'm just going to drop it And, I'm just about dead center. I mean, that is like perfect for me. But on your positioning sticker, at this point, you then just take it to the machine, attach it to the machine, and allow the machine to locate that positioning sticker. And, then it will either rotate it or just reposition it. It'll navigate it in the right position. So, yeah, you don't have to use PAL, but if you have it, use it, because it doesn't do you any good unless it's turned on. Okay, let's look at a jacket back. How about that? Look at this beautiful monogram. Wow. Is that stunning? Isn't that gorgeous? That is just beautiful. That great big M. Oh, it's lovely. So let's take a look at it. It's 2 colors, right? It has really beautiful satins, 2 columns of satins, and then it has a complex fill in the center. So that means, it's going to cover a napped fabric really well. This would be awesome on a big bath sheet, a terry cloth. It would be great on fleece, velvet, velveteen, and of course on denim, it's going to look great too. So same idea. We're going to, this time we'll use an 8x12 because it's kind of a longer hoop. And this one, let's see. Now I don't have this hoop just came out of the warehouse, so I don't have it marked. So I'm going to show you kind of how I would just eyeball it, right? And often I have to do this. I'm not always working with perfect hoops. And then we're going to get our hoop setter in place. Now, this is one of the reasons why when you are working with a hoop that's not marked or so forth, it's really nice to have a hoop that's bigger than your design, because if you are using a hoop that just fits that design with no wiggle room at all, you're kind of really setting yourself up for a stressful hooping operation, right? So we want to make sure that our hoop is a little bit bigger. And this is close, I can tell you. It's a little tight, but that's all right. I have a lot of room north and south, so I'm going to bring this down to make sure I capture all of the jacket in the hoop. Now, what are our challenges with a denim jacket? Well, as you can see, we have a center panel here that's flanked by 2 double welt seams, right? So that's a lot of bulk there. But, Monster Hoop can handle it for sure. And you also have your yoke at the top, which is a great alignment tool to align with your frame underneath. And then you're just going to take your top frame and you're going to slide it into that hoop setter. Now I got a collar here and all of that, so I'm going to have to put this. Oh my goodness, I'm hitting everything. Cameras. All right, so now I have this position. I have my top frame snugged up to my hoop setters, and I am just going to go ahead and drop that. Make sure I'm covering it there. There we go. And now I have some challenges here because I have all these extra seams and I don't want to, catch the collar or anything like that in the frame. So on the underside of the garment. So there we have it. And now I'm ready to remove those hoop setters, and I go to the machine and I'm ready to just stitch. That is nice and centered and flat. There we go. So, and I did that without PAL, but it looks pretty centered, doesn't it? So at the machine, we would use our navigation keys to center our needle right here. And then before we stitch, we're going to lift that print and stick paper. And I always do it from behind the needle, and I pull it towards me when I'm sitting at the machine under the needle. And if I do it in that fashion, it won't catch on the foot, right? It'll just pull right down nice and smooth. And then, of course, I'm going to reuse this template because I can over and over and over again. So I'll just store it on its protective paper that it came on. There we go. And all righty, just give me 1 second here and let's see what's next. Okay, so, oh, we have, where are we at? Well, you didn't tell me, did you? How would you do this with snowman music? And some people wanted to, I wanted to know what colors would you stitch that towel in? Are you sticking stabilizer? So Kathy Purdy wants to know, are you sticking stabilizer to hoop or just to the towel there? On the towel, I would just have a piece of tearaway stabilizer on top of the bottom frame. So between the bottom frame and the top hoop is, I mean, between the bottom frame and the towel, that's where my stabilizer would be. Sometimes you're going to fuse stabilizer to a garment. Like on the jean jacket, I would fuse our no-show mesh, our fusible, to the wrong side of the design area. And then that way, I'm not worried about any excess layer of stabilizer because it's one with the jacket. Okay, let's see. And Jennifer Alexander, you say that would be heavy on the back of that jacket. Oh, I don't think so, because that letter has been digitized perfectly. It's not going to be heavy. It's not going to be puckered. I mean, it's going to have a lot of impact because it's really big. And depending on the color that you chose, you could go tone on tone. So let's see. PAL isn't on the product page. Where can you find it? And that M font is magnificent, isn't it? Thanks, Dawn. It's just gorgeous. We love it. Okay, so let's see, back to PowerPoint, and I want to show you some fun that you can have with 2-letter monograms. So here and did I tell you that it's on sale today? So Hoop Setter comes in a pack of 2, and it's only $29.99. So we hope that you'll take advantage of that. If you're a Snap Hoop Monster user, you'll really find this to be a helpful tool. And if you've been having trouble getting the top and bottom aligned, then this will solve that problem for you. All right. So here's some 2-letter initials. Now, my family is full of people who love to fish. So we have Peter and or Peter Langford. So his first initial is P, obviously, in the L. A nice masculine design, maybe, but just a lot of fun. And then Aldo Palumbo is a fisherman by heart. And so I just thought that kind of swirly A and B looks like a wave, and that fish jumping out, super fun. Super fun. Okay. And Christopher Joseph Scully III is also the third in his family with that same name, and they're all avid fishermen. So I thought that fishing pole was so appropriate for him. And here, I want you to take a look at the AZM. So this could be 3 initials, right? This could be, the last name could be the Z, and it could be, Alfred Michael Zeno, right? And maybe he's a golfer and he loves to golf. And then over on the right, we have ERK, and that's actually my initials, Eileen Catherine Roach. So my center initial is larger and in the center, and the 2 smaller initials designate first and second names or middle names, and they're smaller. That's the traditional approach to monogramming. Let's see. Okay, Marianne de Blagala, she says she uses the projector, so that on a Baby Lock or Brother machine, and correct me if there's another brand of machine that has a projector, she projects the image of the embroidery design. Now, that's a feature in her machine, and she aligns that with the template, before you remove the template, and that is great. You do have to love those machines. The projector is very precise. And let's see, is there stabilizer under the jacket? Well, I would apply the fusible no-show cutaway stabilizer. That's what I would apply to that. Okay, let's see. And Marianne wants to know, are all these designs in Word Art and Stitches? All of them are in Word Art and Stitches. Everything that you see here, including all these tiny little charms, I believe are also in Word Art and Stitches. Let's see. Kathy Suit says that the FOF Icon 2 has a projector. Great. That's so good to know. Thanks for sharing that, Kathy. So you could use that very same technique by having the template on the garment and then projecting it the image onto the hooped fabric and template to ensure that it's in the right location. Now, sometimes people say, well, if I have the projector, why do I need to know, why do I need to print a template? Well, the projector and the snowman, all of those features are fabulous when you know where you want to put your design. But when you hoop a garment or a piece of fabric or a quilt, once it's hooped, you just have this square canvas, right, or rectangular canvas that's in the hoop, and you lose your point of reference, let's say on a jacket back or on a garment front. Now, if you're doing like the left bodice of a jacket, you no longer have the reference point of the center front of the jacket. So you're kind of just out there in no man's land. That's why a template placed on the item prior to hooping ensures that your embroidery is placed exactly in where you wanted it and in a pleasing location. And, if you're like me, like, well, on a jacket back, I wouldn't do this, but on a jacket front, I would print that template, put it on the jacket and put the jacket on and stand in front of the mirror and make sure it's pleasing. Does it flatter my figure? Is it drawing attention to an area that I don't want it to? Is the design, too far off the center of the bodice? Is it caught underneath the arm? It's very difficult to determine that when a garment is laid flat. When it's on figure, that's when you can determine if the embroidery is in the right position. And so all those fabulous machine features that we have, we can't use until we know where we want that design. So anyway, that's a lot of, that's a lot. Okay. Let's move on to some more of these three-letter initials. I think we have one more. Oh, no, couples. So let's talk about couples. My good friend in Pennsylvania, Catherine Martinez, did this adorable collection of monograms many years ago for the magazine. And this monogram here actually designates her and her husband. And Catherine is the K on the left. And she's a sewist, an absolute fiber artist for sure. She can embroider, she can quilt, she can do it all. And her husband is a fisherman. So she combined those two shapes really and turned them into letters and really made a creative monogram for her and her husband, Paul. Isn't that awesome? I always admired that. She's a very talented lady. Okay, now here, this is, believe it or not, this is a couple's monogram. And this is Noda and Michelle, is a couple that have been together for almost 30 years. Now, but if this was hanging somewhere, you wouldn't know if this is Nancy Miller or, so a first and last initial, or is it designating the first initial of a couple, with both initials? So you never really know. And if you're making a gift for someone, ask them what they want. What's their preference, right? Okay. Other ways to address couples. Today, a lot of couples keep their maiden name. A woman will keep her maiden name, or same-sex couples, they don't often share the same surname. So you have to get a little creative on how you're going to address couples that have four unique initials. So here we have Bradley. I'm just making this up, Bradley William and Gary Madison. So that's a same-sex couple. And what is, the oversized initials really designate the surname initials. And then, of course, the smaller ones are the first name. So I think that's an appropriate way to lay out a four-letter monogram. Now, on the right-hand side, all the letters are the same size, but the colors designate what's joined. So the A and the S are the surname initials, and the gold, the N, and the B are the first name initials. You could kind of go in any fashion that you wanted. You could have, you can play with it. And that's one of the beauties about software and monogramming, right? My goodness, you could play all day with that. It's so much fun. All right, let's see what's next. Family names are often, here we have more four initials. Sorry, I was jumping ahead. But aren't these elegant? Oh, I love these. So again, here we have KB and CD. So B and D are the surnames. They're larger. And everything is one color. All letters are one color. But again, you could opt to make that more unique. And then on the image on the right, we have the two surnames, M and W, oversized, and then the first initials are the same size and stacked in the center of that really elegant monogram. Really lovely. So many choices. Now, let's talk about family names. Sometimes you just want to spell out the whole family name, right? And maybe add one initial, like Richard for sure. Oh, I have other examples to show you. Well, we'll get back under the camera and do that. I love Richardson. Yeah, I think that's really cool. I like the capital R, that large uppercase. The split monogram for Morris is attractive. It was trendy several years ago. I don't see that much of it today, but the option is still there for you to offer to someone if you're making them a monogram. Here are some really elegant ways to address full names. Williams on the left, no initial, just completely spelled out with that lovely bracket on the bottom. And then on the right-hand side, we have a combination of the name and also that surname large initial. And of course, the vine going around just adds another element. You never really know what people's style is. So you should find out, before you take it upon yourself to make a monogram gift for someone, try to find out what their style is. Would they be, open to this kind of vine on the right-hand side, or would they want the more traditional, more formal bracket on the underneath Williams? Or, are they kind of more fun with this trendy Morris split monogram? You got to do a little research before you actually make it for some of them. So let's go and let's look at some other samples before I move on. I just want to show you, these are two of my absolute favorites. This is another bookmark, but that V and S, isn't that gorgeous? I think I can move this out of the way now. Look at how small and these lovely little flowers. Oh man, that's just gorgeous. And this, so elegant. I love this font, kind of Art Deco. And just these narrow columns of satins with a dot on either end that brings the color of the monogram into the outer area and just really is very elegant. So much fun. Okay. We had some 3-letter monograms here. So let's go ahead and show those. Here again, now this time we used King Star Metallic because why not? What an elegant table that will make to have all these napkins adorning the table. And, really skinny satins, but very elegant, very, very elegant. So it's nice for a napkin, because a napkin is actually, it's going to be used, so you don't want a whole lot of fuss on it, I don't think. And then here we have, we do have a whole lot of fuss, right? We have some really pretty scrolly brackets and some swirls and curls off of the font. And here is a little bit more contemporary, a little bit more casual for a towel. But, earlier I showed you that M, and here we have it. So this is a little different, right? So this time we have a 3-letter monogram. This is on a 26-inch European sham. So this really fills a good space of that sham. And you'll want that on big linens, for the bed or for the bath, because, you don't want it to look like a postage stamp. You want to make some kind of impact. But here you can see, now that this is stitched out, you can see that beautiful column, the satins on the outside and then the complex fill on the inside. And it gives you the opportunity to make it 2 colors. It doesn't have to be. This gray could have been black and then it would just appear to be a wider satin. But since you have 2 elements digitized that way, why wouldn't you stitch it like that, right? Okay. Let's see what else is next. I have more hooping. I know I have more hooping, but we'll get to it. All right, let's see. Over in, when you want to make it memorable, sometimes a monogram is created and given at a specific time in someone's life. And that could be on a wedding for sure. So here we have a beautiful bridal shower gift. all of these blended monograms of a new couple that's about to be married embroidered on the towels, and then the date and name of the couple on the ribbon, and then all of that is tied up in a bridal illusion tool to just kind of make it a beautiful package. And my talented sister Marie Zeno did that. Okay, Becky Mums wants to know what is commonly used for a man's shirt cuff monogram. Very small lettering, 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch in height, and often it's just block lettering, all three letters, all three initials, the same size in, first, middle, and last initial is normally how that's done. Mary S. Larson, do you use cutaway on a napkin? No, you do not. In my opinion, use a stabilizer that will be removed because napkins are going to be used and laundered and so forth. So you want to be able to use a tearaway. I prefer our medium weight soft tearaway because it easily tears away and it does provide enough support for satin stitches on a cotton napkin. And then when I go to tear it away, it's just, it's very easy to get rid of. So yeah, super easy. Okay, let's see. Just want to see if I've missed any. Okay, Mary S. Larson, she said that she would match the monogram towel color to the accent color of the bathroom. Very good. Love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. Great idea, for sure. Okay, so another occasion could be a holiday, right? Like here we have Valentine's Day coming up. And do you love this little design, the little love letter, embroidery design with hearts flowing out? And we put G and P there for Gloria and Pete, which is so cute. Peter, his name is. I should be a little bit more formal. But I'd also like to show you on the overhead cam that, holidays can also be designated with some kind of little accent, right? So here we have PJM, and, M is the middle name. So this is Peter Michael Jefferson, let's say. And then we just added this really attractive little holly leaf. What a lovely table setting that would make. Imagine a whole set of them, right? So sometimes the occasion calls for a different type of monogram. What else calls for a different monogram? Oh, well, it could be the purchase of a new home, or when you sell a home, right? Like if you're a realtor, I know many realtors like to give a gift of monogrammed items, whether they are a set of towels or maybe just kitchen towels with, if you've named your house. A lot of people like to, have a fun name that you would give to the home that you live in, or if you get a beach house, maybe you call it the Palm House or something like that. So it's not really a monogram, but it still is a moniker, right? So it's designating the title of a location. Here on the purchase of a new home, a nice young couple at 722 Maple in Dallas, you could have a little home icon there and just super cute. So let's see. So McLean wants to know what would be used on a napkin. So I like to use a tearaway on a napkin. Can you use a wash away? Sure, you could, but usually napkins are done in a set of 8 or 10 or 12, depending on how big your family is, right? And I find that, the wash away stabilizer gets a little pricey. So I just use the tearaway. It's more economical and it does the job and it's just fine. But of course, another special occasion as to when to make a monogram would be on the birth of a child. And so let's take a look at this Harry looks like daddy subway. We call this a subway tile, but instead of being square, this one is round. So let's go and let me clean some of this up. And I want to show you a couple things. So that circle monogram that you just saw actually started in our Word Art and Stitches as this square subway tile. That's what it normally looks like. This is what's loaded into the software. And you can change any of the words, the numbers, and even the elements if you'd like. but they're there for you already in these subway tiles. Now that's in our word art and stitches. So I took that subway tile and then I changed it to this, to a circle, because it would blend, go with this quilt that I purchased. You know, it has these big circular medallions, right? And I thought, wow, that would be just awesome there. So let's take a look at what's changed. So the first thing I did was I removed, well, I can show you in software, but I added a circle applique. I shrunk everything down a little bit, and then I added just 2 elements on the left and the bottom to just kind of fill in that shape. Now, the bundle of joy is actually here, but it's in white or gray, so you can't see it right there. And that's our print and stick target template paper. But what I did was, first thing I did was I placed it here on my napkin corner, my quilt corner, and let's go ahead and hoop that. We'll just do that like just like we did the other one, and we'll get those hoop setters in place. I just want to make sure I'm square, and I'll see if I can bring Pal back. Oh gosh, can she do it? I don't know. And then, so I'm just aligning my PAL, you know, and it takes a little bit, right? You can either align the PAL with the mat, or you can just move the hoop so that PAL is aligned with the hoop. And really, that's what's important at this stage. So I'm going to center my template, right? And I'm smoothing that down. Now, this time you can see there is a little bit more of the or less of the quilt that's actually going to be captured within that frame, right? So, and that's okay, because I'm gonna show you that I actually did like a little trick where I made the applique first. So the very first thing I did was in another piece of fabric was I made the applique, and so I'll show that to you. All right, here we go. So now I am ready to go to the machine and stitch color 1. And that will give me a placement guide. And I'm going to go ahead and move this out of harm's way and show you that I already did that in another hoop. We'll turn off PAL because we don't really need it now. And you can see that I have stitched, see that black line? That's my placement guide. And I had created this in another hoop on the blue fabric. And then the last thing I did was stitch that tack down straight line. And then I'm ready now to go over back to the machine. And I have fused me on the wrong side. So right now I would press this in place and then back on the machine and stitch that satin, and it'll be beautiful and perfectly aligned. And the back, the only thing that will be visible on the back will be the satin outline. So I don't have all of those bobbin stitches that are visible, you know, here on the back of my quilt. So that's a good thing to do, a way to approach that for sure. All right, let's see. Then the next thing I want to show you is I have another I have an item that I want to hoop, and this is a sham. I'm going to show you what a hot mess this is, okay? Shams are difficult, and yet they are something that look stunning when monogrammed and oversized. So let's go back over here, and I'm going to show you my sham. Okay, let's get rid of all this stuff so you're not have all this in harm's way. So it's a big white satin sham. It's a standard sham, right? So it's not a queen or a king. But let's take a look at that back. And I have found the center for this large applique monogram. And, you know, just like any sham, right? It's going to have that envelope opening, which is, you know, handy, except if you're trying to hoop it, because it doesn't really open that much. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn this inside out. So let's go ahead and do that. And then we're going to get our our hoop. I'm going to pull it off another project. Here we go. And I'll get the hoop setters in place. And boy, these are really handy on a project like this because you are working in the dark for sure. So we'll go ahead and turn this on, and I'm aligning it with my hoop and the PAL. And now I'm going to take that sham that I've almost turned out, and I'm going to put it design side down, right? So this is the good side on the inside, and I'm going to stick that in the center of my hoop, and I can kind of feel it. And have that aligned. So then I'm going to take, you really have to be careful when you do this because, you know, you have a lot of layers in here. And you want to make sure that you have your hoop aligned with the hoop setter. So that's the first thing I'm doing. And I can keep my template aligned with PAL somewhat. You know, I have a lot of wiggle room in this hoop with this design, so I don't have to worry about being absolutely square. And if you, you know, you have to control the size of your design. So I couldn't stress this more, that it's important for you to make sure that you're not using a hoop that is just going to fit that design and not leave you any wiggle room. Okay, so I am pretty square in there. Now, the real challenge next is to keep this open. So I'm going to use my jumbo hoop guard here. And that's, you know, this device that it has a vertical wall, and then it has a foot here that's going to go underneath my top frame and on top of my fabric. So you have to slide it in there and then just get it underneath. And now when I go to the machine, that hoop guard is going to keep that design area open. Now, this is going to be a challenge. I'm going to have to stay with the machine and make sure when it's stitching over in this area, because this is where my attachment's over there. Oh, I have this backwards. Oh, yeah. See, sometimes I work upside down for you, and then I forget that I'm upside down. So let me just take this off and put it on the other side, because we never put the hoop guard next to the pantograph or next to the attachment, right? We only want that to go. So let's see, I'm just going to pull this up and slide that under. There we go. And now you have it. So I would take a moment to make sure this fabric is all nice and smooth, and then pull the excess over here. And then when I'm at the machine, I'm going to stay with it. But as you can see, it is definitely going to allow me to fill that whole hoop, and my foot's going to be able to travel around comfortably. With the addition of that hoop guard, that really makes it. So it's handy. So that was a lot of challenging things to hoop today, right? Sandra Martinez says, could you reverse the design so that the bobbin thread would be on the top? So Sandra, that's an interesting proposition. You could put decorative thread, and by decorative thread, I mean embroidery thread, 40 weight embroidery thread that you would normally put in your needle. You could put in your bobbin. But I would think that your tension would not be as ideal as you would hope, because embroidery tension is set that the top thread, okay, the needle thread, is visible on the back of the embroidery. And so if you reverse that, I just think you're not going to get those clean, crisp edges of your satin that you expect. I think you're going to, it's just, you could test it. And that's what I would do if I was really stuck on doing it that way. I would test it and see. And many, many years ago, oh my gosh, like I don't even want to tell you what year. It was before the turn of the century, I can tell you that. uh, Janome had a great collection of animals called Wild Animals, memory card number 19, right? And they were like the first on that Janome 8000 machine to come out, and you couldn't mirror image, and you could only rotate 90 degrees, I think. That was it. And they had this zebra who was adorable, and I wanted two zebras facing each other. So I did exactly what you just said, Sandra, and I put my embroidery thread in the bobbin, and I don't even remember what I put in the needle, who knows. And so that I had these two wild animals, looking at each other, and one looked great and the other one was cross-eyed. I'm just saying, there was no way to get around that. It's just it's the wrong side of the embroidery. It's just never going to look that great. So anyway, but things have come a long way. Oh, and there's Aim McCarthy over here in Keller. Thanks, Aim, for your kind comments. And Aim, I hope you're doing well. I know that you're healing right now, which is great. Would you use a basting box around the design on the sham? You know what, Susan? In this case, I would not do that, because when you do a baste, right, it's going to travel all the way around the perimeter of the design. And at that moment, on something like that, where you have a limited area that's open, that machine's going to go, wee, 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 right? I can hear it, and you're going to be there like, and it's not going to function. It's not going to do anything for you at all, because it's just going to ask you to keep your hand in there. And, what I might do, though, is trace, not baste, but trace. So I can see how the whole sham is going to behave when that needle travels around, right? As the foot travels around the embroidery design. And so tracing is different than basting. Tracing is not stitching. It's just foot traveling the perimeter of the design. Basting is stitching all the way around. And basting, its only function is to baste the fabric to a stabilizer. And, I hardly ever do that, because I'm confident in my hooping. And, if I don't have a fusible attached to my fabric, then I have a tearaway or cutaway in there that I know is as smooth and sturdy as I need it to be. So I really don't baste. Sorry. Some people baste on a sticky hoop, that I can see for sure, because, you're not really hooping, right? It's just laying there. Okay. Anyway, so wasn't that fun? Lots of different things to talk about monogramming, and I actually wrote a book on monogramming with my sister Marie a very long time ago, and it needs to be updated, to be honest with you, because we talk about products and software in there that doesn't even exist anymore. But, the basics are still there. We talk about, I think there were the 5 F's of monogramming, and they were format, fabric, feel, fit, font, and finish. So format is it one letter, one initial, 2 initials, 3 initials, and 4? We didn't even talk about 4 initials back then. What kind of fabric? Because, fabric's important, right? If you're going to be stitching towels for someone and you want to give them a choice of fonts, well, you can't show them that Anna that I had with the running stitch, right? I pointed that out to you. It would never work on terry cloth. So that's why fabric is very important. And then the feel. The feel is really the mood. Is it a country home? Is it a log cabin? Is it a beach house? Is it an elegant dining room? Each of those kind of moods would call for a different type of monogram. And then fit is, well, where's it going? Is it going on a napkin corner? Is it going on a hand towel or a bath towel or a shower curtain, right? Or a sham. Those kind of things are going to tell you what size it needs to be. And then, of course, the font. If your name begins with an S or a J or an I, or even an F, as in Frank, some of those initials in script can be really lackluster and hard to identify. So you have to really find out what the initials are that you're going to be stitching, and then research that font all of your fonts to see which one would look best. And then, of course, which one also fits the mood that we already talked about, right? And then, of course, is finished. Now, you have to understand, when I wrote this book, when Marie and I wrote this, oh my goodness, what year was this? 2013. So she was 10 years ago. More than that. She was a commercial embroiderer at the time. And, she was stitching per minute. I was stitching per month, right? I was running the magazine, and we just needed to make beautiful embroidery every 2 months. And that was our goal. And I used to tease her how commercial embroiderers, I say, they never finish. They don't trim thread tails. They don't trim away stabilizer. They just like one and done, right? Stitched, wrap it back up, and out it goes out the door. So that's why I put finish was really important. You had to make sure it was all clean and tidy, and, any trim that needed to be done was done, and also press. So yeah. Okay. That's it. That's all I got, folks. But we do have, we got On the House coming up, but that's not all, because next week, you're really in for a treat. Next week, you have 2 Facebook Lives with Dime, because we have Ashley's going to be here for Software Success, and she's talking about getting started with My Fabric Designer, which is a really fun program. And I hope you'll join in and just watch. Even if you're not interested in designing fabric, you're going to learn a lot. You really are. And it's a lot of fun. So then, but you always want to know what's happening and how you can know what's happening. And that occurs when you subscribe to our YouTube channel and when you like us on Facebook. So we would really hope that you would continue to do that. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Next week, I'm going to be back, and I have my good friend Dawn Chase from Creative Appliques is going to be my guest. And we're going to be talking about applique, mainly on t-shirts, but we might venture into a quilt or two. We'll see. But this will be Dawn's first time joining me here on Facebook Live, and I'm just couldn't be more delighted to have her come on as a guest and a friend. And we're going to learn all about her website, her history, a little bit about her. So, it's going to be a fun day. I hope you'll join us. Well, it's almost time for On the House. And if you remember, On the House is the free design that we give away every week, and we do it all year. And at the end of the year, we take down all of the previous year. So right now, if you go to dimedzgns.com and click on Designs and Projects and then Free Designs, you're going to find all of 2023's designs there in a zip file. But I've been told by our webmaster that they are being taken down today. So if you haven't gotten 2023, go grab it now, okay? It's going to come down in one big zip file. You're going to get 52 designs. That includes the 11 projects that I made, one a month. So everything that you missed, it will be there, but you got to get it today. So I hope that you'll go do that. And then we're going to show you what is coming up, with this week's design, and you're going to love it. But, some of you have been stitching our designs, and we only know that because you shared your project on Facebook or YouTube with these hashtags, Dime Sew Along, On the House, and Exquisite Thread. So let's take a look at what you've been doing. So just a few of you out there. So I hope that you'll start posting what you've been doing. So Linda Brooks, you love all that. So Francie, you say got to get going on that. Get busy downloading those designs for sure. Today's On the House design is that adorable Valentine love letter that I showed you. Without the initials, you can add them yourself in your software or at your machine. But isn't it so sweet? I just love that design. And I hope that you'll take advantage of it and maybe stitch something wonderful for somebody who means the world to you. So I'd like to thank you for joining me today, and I hope you'll come back next week. It's going to be all about applique on t-shirts and more with Dawn Chase from Creative Appliques. Thanks for joining me today.